the actual session can then look at the recording that I will post online. I want to ask you at this time, I have a little bit of a sinus infection in my nose, so I might have to mute myself every now and then just to cough or just to take a sip of water, but I will come right back. And so I'm going to mute myself, just drink my water and then come back and then carry on with the session. Okay, so let us take a look at where we are. I want to chat with you all tonight a little bit about feedback from the session or the exam, the October-November exam. And although I may not share the memo with you, I can talk you through some hotspots, and I can explain to you where some of you went dismally wrong. So I also want to help you then prepare for the supplementary exam, because believe me, you don't want to be here again, and I don't want you to be here again either. Your success is my success. So I really want to help each of you be successful, and the only way you are going to be successful is if you
An hour. Right?
Sorry, Professor. I think you are muted.
yeah. Okay, my apologies. So how much of that did you miss? Shall I just start over with that slide? Okay, let me start over with that. All of it. Okay. Okay, so basically your supplementary exam is a take-home exam. The system will open on the 16th of February at 9:45 in the morning, and please access the My Exams portal. It's exactly the same place where you went for your October-November exams, and then you download your exam question paper from there. On that morning, I'm going to be available on my email, and I'm going to be part of a team of lecturers that are on standby to help you if you have a problem to download the exam or to download something or to access the exam portal. So, but what I want to ask you is go to the announcements on your module site, go and check out what must you do to access the exam, because just this past exam 2608, I had a student contacting me in a flat panic. She cannot access the exam and she was at the wrong portal. So don't add to the stress of your day. Make sure you know where to go, make sure you know what to do, and make sure you know how to access it. I will also, here on the morning of the second day, or perhaps I should do it the first day already, is I will post for you an alternate uploading link. You remember the tiny URLs? So you will, if you find accessing the My Exams portal a challenge, when you want to upload. Then you use the tiny URL, but please only make use of it if all efforts have failed to access the exam portal for upload. If you are writing by hand, I want you to write neatly and legibly. You may write by hand, it's not a problem. But when you scan in the pages, be careful to hold the phone or the instrument, hold it still when you take the photo, because some of the submissions I got with this previous round, the submissions were blurred, and I really struggled to make out what is it the students are trying to say. Sometimes the pages were cut off. Some pages were password protected, or it's a secure document. Then I can't mark that exam. Then exam has to contact the student. We ask for a password, and sometimes you guys don't even know you password protected your document. So make sure that you don't do anything funny to the PDF. The system will close for submissions on the 18th of February, which is Friday morning at 11 o'clock. So you will see that your exam time is from 10 o'clock on the 16th. The system opens 15 minutes before the time so that the rush can go past. And then it closes for submission on the 18th at 10. But we give you an additional hour for upload. Don't work on your assignment during that time, because if you contact me at 5 to 11 and you tell me I'm struggling to upload, then my question is going to be, but why are you only struggling now to upload? If you were struggling to upload, you should have been struggling at 5 to 10. So please make sure that you use the upload time to upload. Okay, guys, so what went wrong? I want to highlight a few things. If you think you were disappointed with the results, oh, my heart was broken. This module achieved basically a 50% pass rate. So what I had to do is I had to go look at the primary causes for the poor performance, and to a very large extent, we can prevent a repeat performance of the October-November exams, provided you apply the principles I'm going to be explaining today. And it's not rocket science. These are things we spoke about at the previous session when I also went through exam preparation. Now, you will remember in the assignments and in the exam, you have to answer questions using your own words. You were expected to provide examples and to make use of references. Some students did incredibly well, others not so much. So I want us to look at where some of our students really didn't do well. But before we do that, you might have noticed that there were exam instructions attached to your exam paper. And I'm wondering how many of you read through those things. So I want to highlight a couple of issues. So first of all, one of the instructions says this is an open book exam. You may consult your prescribed study material during the examination. And then I highlighted, remember to cite the sources you use at the end of each question or sub-question. You are awarded marks for this, and if you do not cite, you will lose marks. Now, each of you can go back and think, did I cite every question and sub-question? You cannot cite yourself. You are not a source. And it doesn't help you give me a reference list at the end. It means nothing. This instruction says there must be a source at the end of every question or sub-question. In addition, please do not cut and paste answers from the study guide or any other source. Some of you did that, and as a result, you did not pass. So as it's an instruction, guys. This is not a recommendation. This is like a law. So if you did not follow these rules, there were specific consequences. Some of the other instructions. Use quotes very sparingly. In this take-home exam, a maximum of 5% of the text may be quoted. When answering the take-home exam questions, remember that an open book exam is a test at a higher level than a usual type of exam, where memory is tested as much as insight. In an open book exam, you need not memorize any information. You are, however, expected to prove that you can use the information. rather than merely repeated. In brief, what is being tested is factual knowledge, understanding, and the application or the correct application thereof, not just memory skills. And for this reason, you didn't earn marks by merely detailing a list of the information you think might be relevant. So you were expected to identify precisely what information applies and then explain why you think so. Also, because you have the guide available when answering questions, I didn't give marks for direct quotations from the guide, because unless you then went and unpacked it and explained it and gave me examples, other than that, it meant basically nothing. But I want us to quickly stand still and look at how does one mark? If I give you a question and I know that you have a book, so if you give me what's in the book, can you pass? So this is how I mark. You will get 40% for a question. Let's say the question is out of 10, so you will get 4 out of 10. If you mainly paraphrase from the study guide, so paraphrase is you write in your own words from the study guide, and that's it. Some of you copy directly from the study guide. If that's all you did, you will fail, because anybody can do that. But how do I know that you understand what you are talking about? You were allocated 50% if you mainly paraphrased from the study guide with some discussion and a reference. So in other words, you interpreted the information and you gave a reference. If you brought in other additional sources or resources, then your marks go up. Then we're looking at 6, 6.5. You will get 7, 8, 9 if you add to that practical examples or scenario in each instance with a reference. So I want to just give you a tip. When you provide an answer and you want to give an example, you can do as follows. In the discussion, I will unpack the principles that are applicable to crime investigation or crime intelligence. And then you talk and then you put your reference in. An example of this is when, and then you give an example, a practical example, and immediately it shows me that, okay, you can take the theory, which is the definition, and you can put it into an unknown or an unfamiliar space, and you can give me an example in which you unpack how the theory works. You must think about application. It's only by explaining to me how the theory fits into practice that I can see whether you understand the work or not. Okay, now there might be some confusion about when may you copy directly from the text and when must you paraphrase. So I want us to consider some examples. So when you have to name things like steps or principles or motives, then obviously it's a term that you cannot paraphrase, a key term or a principle. Then it's perfectly okay to write it exactly as it is in the study guide. For example, if you look at the motives of informers, you look at greed, you look at revenge, that is what you write down in the exam. But when you are expected to discuss, let's take, for example, list the steps in the crime intelligence cycle, then you merely mention those steps. But if you want to discuss what happens in each step, then you must discuss in your own words what happens in each step and provide an example of what may happen practically in that specific step. Okay, so if you, for example, discuss the step of collection, you tell me what usually happens during this step, and you give an example of how it may occur in practice. Your voice is only important as far as application or the practical scenario or example is concerned. Okay, I mentioned additional sources or additional resources. What do I mean by this? These are not the additional authors inside the study guide. That's not an additional source because that's inside the study guide. You will remember I provided you with additional sources on the module site, and I gave you the reference method for those sources. Or you can source something online yourself or get a hard copy if you have a textbook. Those are additional sources or resources. It tells me that you read wider than just the study guide. Practical examples. What do I mean by a practical example? You cannot give me the examples in the book. That's the same as copying. You have to give me your own example. So, guys, you have to really apply your mind. Even if you take that example in the book and you make up your own example, because not all of you have the practical experience, then you make up your own example along the lines of the one in the book. But don't give me the one in the book, please. It's not going to work. Okay, so what I did, or what I always do, is I meet with my markers before the time. We go through the memo. We get onto the same page with a memo. And then we start marking. And then we start marking. And very quickly, we started picking up a couple of things now. I started picking up that some students did not understand, or they misinterpreted what questions were expected. I'm going to chat about that when we look at the actual exam paper. Some of the students simply copied from the study guide without further explanation. In some papers, there was either very little or no referencing at all. Remember, marks are going to be awarded for referencing. Even if you reference in the incorrect format, that's also okay. Just make an effort. In your exam, there were only 8 questions. The exam counted out of 80 marks. Then there were students who simply left questions open. And how do you expect to pass an exam if you leave open an entire question? And this happened with question 8. I added this question. We will discuss it just now. I added this question because it's something that we are faced with. So it's something we should be looking, thinking about and looking at and talking about. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples from the exam question paper. So what I first want to do is I want to show you some errors that I picked up. So this is an incorrect submission. So this student will contact me and say, but I got 0. How is that possible? Well, you submitted the wrong module content for FOR2607. I cannot go back and tell you, okay, please submit the correct document. You must check that you submit the correct document. Misinterpretation of especially question 2.2. Now, if we look at what question 2.2 says, it says, let me get to question 2.2. In the table below, list 10 differences between the 2 types of crime intelligence, which is tactical and strategic crime intelligence. Now, what the student did is the student gave me the analysis format. So in other words, a product of tactical crime intelligence, what it may look like when it is processed. And that is what the student gave me. And so it is incorrect, and it's 11 marks. I think they confused it, perhaps what was expected of question 2.3, because in 2.3 you were asked to provide 2 examples of the types of analysis that may be viewed as strategic crime intelligence and tactical crime intelligence. So here's a misinterpretation of question 2.2, 11 marks, zoop, down the drain. Here's another one, exactly the same error, exactly the same. Here wasn't even a reference that I could award 1 mark for the reference. There was nothing. Question 3. So let's take a look at question 3 quickly. Name 4 types of closed sources that the South African Police Service use in crime intelligence. Information kept by the police, internal statutory databases, lawyer-client privilege, and doctor-patient privilege. Now I want to highlight those bottom 2. Those bottom 2 cannot be used. It cannot be used. You need a court order to access that. So that's not a closed source of information. We were looking for things like the criminal record, status of a firearm. So look at the misinterpretation here, or sometimes it's just, I don't know what to call it. 5 marks down the drain. Question 4. Oh, question 4 was a doozy. Your manager asks you to analyze the data on crimes that were perpetrated in your company over the past financial year. Name and briefly discuss in your own words what are the factors that you will consider when you conduct the crime pattern analysis. 11 marks down the drain. There wasn't even a reference. Incorrect information, total misinterpretation of the question. Insufficient information. Question 4 was 11 marks. This was given for question 4. I don't think the student got 2 marks for this because there wasn't even a reference. So this is simply not enough, and you must make that determination. When it's 2 marks or 3 marks, this might be sufficient, but where are your facts? What are you talking about? What are you reporting on? What are you discussing? What is the weight of the question that you are discussing? So before we go to the next slide, I want us to quickly take a look at the exam question paper. Okay, so basically this is your exam question paper, and I want to go through question for question so that we can just unpack a little bit of the questions and what each question was expected. What was it expected of you? So question 1 was provide your own definition of forensic crime intelligence. So what is it about? What is the focus of this question? It's about forensic crime intelligence. You had to provide your own definition, was 4 marks. So what was I looking for? I was looking for number 1, your own voice. I was looking for the elements of, there must be like a court or a tribunal or like a forum that this is aimed at. We are headed in that direction. It is an investigation, so it's an action like a disciplinary or civil investigation, and it's used to gather evidence against people or about an activity. So those are the elements I'm looking for in the definition, because if you don't have all those elements, you have not sufficiently described forensic crime intelligence. And then obviously a reference. Okay, so let us take a look at question 2. The study guide discusses several types of crime intelligence. That's a statement. 2 of these are tactical and strategic crime intelligence. So now you focus on tactical crime intelligence and strategic crime intelligence. So the first question is provide your own definitions of tactical crime intelligence and strategic crime intelligence. What was I looking for here? You have to go and focus on the elements of these definitions. What is tactical crime intelligence? In other words, what does it focus on? What is its purpose? What is strategic crime intelligence? What does it focus on? What is its purpose? And then a reference. So it's obviously 2 marks per definition and then 1 mark for the definition, for the reference. Okay, and then the doozy. In the table below, provide 10 differences between these 2 different types of crime intelligence. Add space if you need it. Left side crime intelligence, right side strategic, and right side tactical. What were you supposed to do? You were supposed to tabulate 10 differences. What some of you did, and this was so confusing and it makes it so difficult to mark, is the right way would be, for example, let's start on the left-hand side. Strategic intelligence does not focus on specifics or individual targets. On the right-hand side, tactical crime intelligence focuses on specific targets. But what some of you would do is you would say on the left-hand side does not focus on specific targets, And on the right-hand side, it's designed for managers and practitioners. Now, those two don't speak to each other. You are not aligning the differences. You have to align the differences. And there has to be a reference. Unbelievably, some students actually left this question blank, and it was such a nice question to answer. And I mean, you had to tabulate. You didn't even have to discuss. You had to tabulate. Question 2.3. And this is where some students confused question 2.2 and 2.3. And then in 2.2, they gave me what they were supposed to give me in 2.3. So in 2.2, you give me the different types of analysis like strategic crime intelligence analysis, could be strategic and trend analysis, threat or risk assessments, intelligence estimates. And I mean, there were two examples each with a reference. Money from home. The next one was a bit disappointing because I mean we had it in. I found this on the web. We had it in assignment 2 or assignment 1. We had it in the exam. We discussed this in the feedback tutorial letter. I explained that doctor-patient confidentiality and lawyer-client privilege are not correct, and yet some of you still provided it as correct. So please take a look again at those examples. And that is what you give. Look at the question, name 4 types of closed sources. Not discuss, not elaborate, name, and then obviously a reference. So question 4 was actually the only one where I added a little bit of a scenario. So your manager asks you to analyze the data on crimes that were perpetrated in your company in the past financial year. You are to name, so you're going to have a list, and then you must briefly discuss these factors that you will consider when you conduct the crime pattern analysis. What were you supposed to do? Some students misinterpreted this totally, as I showed you in the other example, and lost 11 marks, didn't even give a reference. Some students aced this. But my question is, there was a little bit of a scenario. Did you apply it in your discussion, yes or no? So you were expected to say, what are the factors that you must discuss? The what factors? The incident or the nature or the type of incident. So it could be money laundering. It could be theft of stock. Number of incidents in the last financial year. There could be 250 incidents. So did that factor into your discussion, or did you simply just list incident, nature and type, number of incidents? What does that tell me? That tells me nothing. It tells me nothing. Okay, question 5 was basically you had to unpack the elements that crime prevention, the definition of crime prevention consists of. I gave you 3 definitions there, and this was in your study guides as well. You had to give your own words and a reference in terms of the elements that you identified, and then bring in a reference as well. So question 6 confused some of you because you read in the study guide. Let me just get to the study guide. You read about this in the study guide in study unit 5. So study unit 5 deals with the use of financial information profiling during investigations or in the court. So let's look at the question. What is the most widely used method available to investigators to determine possible illegal sources of income? So, paragraph 5.4 says there are 2 methods of estimating illegal income. What does the question say? Most widely used method. And then it goes on to discuss the direct and the indirect, and it discusses the direct, and then the significance, and then the indirect. And then at the bottom of page 84, it is written that the net worth method is the most widely known approach, one that adapts readily to non-tax investigations of illegal source of income. So what is the answer there? Not the direct and indirect method, but the net worth method. As simple as that. Guys, you have to read and understand the crux of the question, and that is why I'm unpacking it for you in so much detail. Now, based on your answer in question 6.1, so if you told me in 6.1, you gave me the incorrect answer, the probability that you will get 6.2 wrong is there. Okay. As I said, if you got this wrong in 6.1 wrong, then this will also be incorrect. So you have to be sure in terms of what you are answering, that you are on the right track. And then obviously, you will need a reference. And you know what, the things I was looking for is the net worth method can circumstantially prove illicit income, by showing that for a given period of time, the person's assets or expenditure was in excess of what the person could account for, and that is the information you had to provide there. So 6.3 was a lovely question. As an investigator, you may at times have to conduct financial investigations. So what is this about? This is about conducting financial investigations. So what are the questions that one usually addresses or resolves or answers by conducting a financial investigation? So in other words, when you have questions, what are these questions that you want to answer, and you use a financial investigation to answer this? That is what you expected to answer. And then you had to unpack and you had to explain. So I want you to go and look at paragraph 5.2. Go and read paragraph 5.2, and then look at the relevance of the questions and how one can unpack the questions and give your own interpretation or own version of the questions, not interpretation, but your own words. Give the questions in your own words. Okay, 7.1. Again, a statement. The crime intelligence process consists of several steps. So what is the focus? The crime intelligence process. Provide a diagram of this process. Now, some of you were very challenged, but you were so creative and you got it right, and well done. But except for the fact that the majority missed the one step. And that's the step, the outcome step. It's part of the diagram. It's part of the process. Do not skip that. You cannot skip that because it forms part of the process. And then number 2, a lot of you simply didn't answer this. For the crime intelligence process to remain reliable, what must be done in each step before you can proceed to the next step? You had to tell me there was something that you have to do in this process before you can proceed to the next process. Some of you answered it, some of you didn't answer it. And again, reference. Oh, the next one was lovely, and you could really go to town with this if you gave it to me in your own words. So based on answering 7.1, briefly explain in your own words what happens during each of the steps that you mentioned. 13 marks, guys, 13 marks. So you can tell me what happens, and then you can give me a practical example, and you can add a source. I don't even have to go and check the source, but don't lie about the source. Don't be creative. Actually use either the study guide or an additional source if you want to get additional marks. And then obviously, again, a reference. The last one was a question that some of you felt very uncomfortable with. And I usually ask this in my modules for the simple reason that COVID is a reality. COVID has impacted on all spheres of life. It's not in the study guide. It will now be in the FOR1502 study guide because I rewrote that last year. But 2607, 2608, COVID is not mentioned. Yet COVID has an impact on how we do what we do. So you are expected to explain in your own words how the pandemic has affected the following areas of forensic crime intelligence in South Africa. Informer recruiting and handling. You can tell me what informer recruiting handling is briefly, but then you must tell me how has COVID impacted this. I don't want to hear about job losses and poverty and hunger without there being a link to this aspect. And then also planning and conducting surveillance operations in your local shopping mall. The number of students who simply left this open for me was sad, because I asked that question specifically so that you can literally think up how is COVID impacted. And I mean, COVID, we're all familiar with COVID, and we are all impacted by COVID. So you really just had to think, how does it impact you? So that brings us to the end of the question paper that was. Now going forward, it is going to be an open book exam as well, which implies you use your study guide and any other relevant source. What does that mean? It means content that is relevant to the South African context. So you cannot bring in guidelines or principles or even theories that are being used in the USA or Europe if they are not also being applied in the South African context or relevant to the South African context. Please, you may not ask anyone to help you. You may not ask another student. You cannot contact me during the exam and say, but I don't understand this question. What am I expected to do? I cannot help you. Please do not make use of assignment mills to complete your task. You're only cheating yourself. Remember that one of the fundamental characteristics in investigation is that of ethical and honest conduct. Ethics is not what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when people are not watching. For this round of examinations, there's no invigilator app, so nobody but the universe is watching. Remember, you must also tick the honesty declaration before submission. Some students contact me and say, but it doesn't want to upload, it doesn't want to upload. It's because they haven't ticked the honesty declaration before submission. And then also remember, we submit your work to Turnitin. And this will check if you have paraphrased sufficiently. And it will also detect if two students have worked together and their work is very, very similar. I hear somebody's mic is on. Can you all just please mute your mics? Okay, again, in the study guide, there's 5 units. Somebody's mic is on, please. Can we just mute? Let me see quickly whose mic is on.
Okay. Oh, Benson, I'm trying to look for you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I see the mic is off. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, I am going to cover all 5 units, so you can expect something out of each and every unit. I can obviously not tell you what is going to happen, but all I can say is make sure that you know what is where, you know what is in the text. And it's not just headings, it's application of the theory. So go and look at that as well. Okay, referencing. You must reference every question and sub-question. How does it look like? Definition of crime intelligence. Crime intelligence is wah, 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 wah. And there's your reference. The first one is Kraus, Boertanzin. That is the study guide. The second one is Jacoby 2020. Now, how will I know if a reference is in the study guide? Simple. I open the PDF document and I do a word search. It's as simple as that. Guys, I was a cop for 19 years. 10 years I was a detective. You cannot. Yeah, let me leave it there. So please do your due diligence. Do what you're supposed to do, and follow the guidelines I'm giving you. How do you paraphrase? Well, I was given advice by a colleague, and she teaches her students to first rewrite the content into their home language and then translate it into their own words. So for me, this has always worked. And then I get a different translation or a different version of the study material. Do not copy directly, even if you are referencing. So what's the purpose of referencing? It's to show the reader where you got the information from. To not reference means that you are saying this information is my own, which in the exam cannot be, since you're getting the answers from somewhere. When you used to do a sit-down exam where you had to do memory recall, there you didn't reference because the information was coming out of your head. Yes, you did read it in a book, but you can obviously not remember where. And we know that you get it out of your study guide. Now, an open book, you're getting the information from somewhere. So I want us to quickly look at what does a question look like that has been paraphrased, that has an example, that has some discussion, and that has additional resources. So let's look at the question. Discuss the principles that are applied during a surveillance operation in your own words. Okay, you might recognize this from FOR2607. So during a surveillance operations, there are 4 principles that must be applied. The first one is that the operator must blend in with the surroundings. So there's the first principle. If, for example, surveillance must be done at the gaming arcade in the Menlyn Mall, the operator must dress like a gamer and have the look of a person who fits into that environment. You cannot have an operator who's dressed in a designer suit. So I'm saying what he must do. Now I'm saying why it's like that. You cannot have an operator who's dressed in a designer suit doing surveillance, as he will not blend in with the surroundings and he will easily be spotted. So I've used 2 sources. I've used the study guide, but I've also used an article that I accessed online in which Nkosi spoke about an operator blending in with the surroundings. The example I'm giving is Menlyn Mall, a gaming arcade. This is very much in the South African context. You can bring in any example. You can say that somebody must follow somebody at a church service. How must the operator look? You can say somebody must follow somebody or survey somebody at a ladies' meeting. Are you going to send a man? No, you're not. Are you going to send a lady dressed very nicely and normally and not stand out? Yes, you are. And just on this point, one of the primary principles in surveillance is you have to blend in. So if you've got blue hair, or if you've got a step in your hair, or if you've got piercings and tattoos, you will not be a good operator, because these things catch the eye of the target and immediately you are flagged and you are burnt. This you will have to do, this discussion you will have to do for each of the 4 principles in terms of your discussion. So I hope that you get the idea of where we are headed with discuss, own words, example, reference. Okay, some students gave me a reference list, some gave me a bibliography. Neither are necessary. You don't have to do either. But for your information, School of Criminal Justice, we use a reference list. This shows you what text, what did you read, and this you will be reflected in the text, and what's reflected in the text will be found in the reference list. Bibliography is used by the School of Law. They list everything they read, whether it's in the text or not. They list the entire set of documents they read. There are different types of sources. So your study guide will be Kraus, Botha, and Zinn with a date. A textbook, for example, will look like that. So you will cite Nkosi 2020 with a page number, and then internet. Let's say you got this off the internet. And I accessed it on that date, but this is now for the references. So in the text, I will say Brooks and Rampedi 2021. That is how you reference. Don't give me the hyperlink in the text. It's incorrect. Although if you do, you will get marks for referencing, but that is the incorrect format. I want to emphasize it is not compulsory for the exam to have a reference list. So don't stress about it. Please don't worry about it. But it is compulsory to have text references for each sub-question. So you don't have to include it. Let me go back quickly. Can you see what I've done here? That the reference is at the end of the discussion. Now, what I will do is I will first discuss all 4 principles, and then I can put in the text reference. This won't be wrong, but it's not necessary. It will be overkill if I do this for each section. It is sufficient to have a single reference, as in you reference once. It doesn't mean one reference. You reference once for entire question or sub-question. I know I'm a pain in the butt with the with the referencing. So okay. Any questions? Let's take a breather and let's look at if there are questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen quickly. Okay, so now you should see a blank screen. Okay. If you want to ask a question, just raise your hand with this little icon at the top. I'm going to take the first 3 hands and then we will pause, and then we're going to answer the questions, and then we will take the next 3 hands and then pause, and then so forth. You can just unmute yourself or just raise your hand, and then after I have 3 hands, we can, or if you're not comfortable to, you can actually in the conversation, you can type a question for me. If I came across harsh or impatient, that wasn't my intention. I don't want you to get a fright and now you don't want to say anything. I really just want to impress on you the importance of looking at what I've given you and applying the principles in the exam. It's the only way. It is absolutely the only way you are going to pass an online examination. It has to be application. It cannot just be list. Okay, Solomon, I have a hand. I'm going to ask for 2 other hands if there are 2 other hands. Okay, I see no other hands. Solomon, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I just want to find out, in an instance where a question will say would refer to one having to answer in their own words, is it still crucial that referencing should be made to that, or we should leave it out?
Okay, so let's give a practical example. Provide a definition of forensic crime intelligence in your own words. Where did you learn about forensic crime intelligence? In a study guide. So where are you going to get the information from? In the study guide, yes. Yeah. But provide a practical example of informer debriefing, for example. Now you must make up an example. Then you're not going to reference because you are not getting it out of the study guide. You have to think up a practical example.
Okay.
Sure.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Pleasure, Solomon. Anybody else? Shantae, I see you. Oh, Jairus. Okay, Zandila, I'll be with you now. Jairus, the floor's yours. unmute yourself and then you can talk. Rustov, Jairus, Vincent Rustov. You can unmute yourself and tell us what your question is. Oh dear. Okay, there was a question here. Okay, Zandile, if you look at the term strategy, who has a strategy? What is a strategy used for? Strategies are usually used by companies, by corporations, by military divisions to have an overall view of where we're going into the future. What are the challenges? What are the how can I say, forecasting? We look back to go and see what is going forward. So strategy is very high level. We do not use strategic intelligence at grassroots level. It's not the type of intelligence that we can use at grassroots level. It is for governments, it's for business CEOs, it's for very high level. Tactical crime intelligence is the type of crime intelligence that focuses on who is doing what in terms of what crime. So it's a very bounded type of intelligence. It's very focused on a specific person or people, or even activities. If I can give you an example out of the study guide. So it looks at something that's immediate. It's now. It's focused on a crime or a criminal transgression or a crime happening now. And it looks at who is responsible for this and how is it being committed. And this type of intelligence provides you with names, surnames, addresses, occupations, criminal associates. So now you get a picture of the who is responsible, how are they committing the crime, and what do we use this for? We use this so that we can act against these people, specifically these people. It differs a bit from operational crime intelligence in terms, because operational, look at the term tactical and operational. Operational crime intelligence is about operationalizing in terms of a specific time, a specific place, a specific crime. So I hope that explains it a little bit better, Sandile. You can just show me with a thumbs up if you sorted. Okay, any other questions? I see a couple of names here that I'm recognizing, but I'm not going to call on you. I won't call on you. Anything else you want to know in terms of what we discussed? I really want to encourage you to go back and look at the video clip where Mr. Jones gave class and unpacked the different types of intelligence. There are links that are also under additional resources on your module site that there's discussions on the different types of crime intelligence. The lady, she's busy with her PhD now. She has this amazing way of explaining strategic crime intelligence. So if you have any more confusion, go and look at those video clips, and then you will then better understand what the difference At the end of the day, it's what am I using it for? And that will tell you whether it's strategic, if it's tactical, or it's operational. It's what is it used for? Sometimes there's a blurring of lines because I can take operational, I can take crime intelligence, and I can use it tactically, or I can use it operationally. It depends on what data I pull out of it. Any other questions? I'm feeling so alone. Luciwe, yes, please talk to me.
Good afternoon, Prof.
Hi.
Okay. There was a question, I think it's 2.2, where it was saying, let's give example of analysis that can be viewed as strategic crime intelligence. So, yeah, so I wrote from the study guide, it's on page 5, statistical and trend analysis. So I was asking was I wrong if I'm writing those answers there?
No, you are 100% correct.
Okay, thanks.
Did you reference?
No, I was just, yeah, I did. I was just like,
okay.
Because
well done.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Luciwe.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Luciwe, you can lower your hand unless you want to ask something again. Any other questions? Anything in the chat box? Jairus, have you managed to reconnect? Do you want to put your question in the chat box? Okay, Kupanu, yes.
Professor.
Yes.
I just want to know if you know how long does it take to get my marked script after paying that fee? Because I've been checking my exam, exactly what I wrote here when you were busy dealing with the question paper, when we were going through the question paper together. So
Yeah.
I see that I answered almost exactly as you said, but I still don't understand how I said.
Did you ask for a remark, Kupanu?
Yeah, I did that yesterday.
Okay, but
no, not a remark. I asked to view my my marked paper.
When did you do that?
I did that yesterday.
Okay, yeah. I'm wondering why didn't you do it when the results came out? I don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, I honestly don't know. In terms of your studies, when your marks come out and you are dissatisfied, do something immediately. Don't wait a month or two, because I don't know how long it's going to take. I honestly don't know.
Okay, I'll check with the relevant department.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, Jairus, you there? And your hand is somewhere raised twice.
Yes, I'm still here. Yeah, ma'am, I wanted to ask, I heard you said I can make up my own example, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I wanted to ask, should I like really make up my own example in terms of like when I say it reminds me of when I was in Panama when I was station commander there? I mean, like, can I make such unrealistic
You know
examples?
what? You've got to use your discretion. What is the purpose of an example? Ask yourself that. What do I want to see? So there are some of my students who have practical experience in policing or crime intelligence, and they can tell me. The one student actually contacted me and said, but I have so much knowledge that I want to present as part of my literature, and you cannot do that. Use your literature and then unpack by giving an example. So when you give an example, don't, All I'm saying is don't write me a fairy tale. It must be something that's practical, believable. Don't tell me what happens in Panama. Tell me what happens in Josie or in Pretoria or in Cape Town or wherever you're from. Situate your example in the context from which you come from. Make it believable. I was on the moon and I was followed by a Martian, and he wasn't clothed in Martian clothes, so he immediately stood out. That's not believable. So you bring something in that's believable. Okay, I see we have a question here. Prof will be required to prepare a financial profile. Haibo, Leonie, you cannot ask me that question. All I can say is this is an incredibly, no. Okay. I will be hard pressed. I will be hard pressed to do something like that. I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. All I'm saying is I will be hard pressed to do something like that. I may not say yes or no, so please read between the lines. Nkolo, please clarify what was really needed of me there, as I doubt I'm getting the question correct. Question 5. Question 5. The study guide talks about what crime prevention consists of, and that there are certain elements. Now, we are in a legal environment, and this is something I try to teach my students from FOR 1502. If you do 2608 by me, you will do a statement, and I emphasize the elements of the crime. So now we are looking at the definition of crime prevention. There are certain elements in the definition of crime prevention that I wanted you to tease out. And if you didn't go and look in the study guide, that there are 3 definitions. To deter the occurrence of crime and criminals, number 1. So in other words, we want to make sure crime and criminals cannot manifest or be there. To prevent or prohibit further occurrences. So in other words, even if something happened, now we're doing a crime prevention incident to make sure that the criminal doesn't come near this, so that there is not a repetition of the break-in. And then to control or manage crime occurrences and the fear of perceived crime. So now I have a crime prevention operation in my area to make sure that the criminals don't come into the area and perpetrate crime there, to prevent them from perpetrating crime again and again, because I will do crime prevention if there's crime. If there's no crime, you don't do crime prevention. So part of crime prevention is to prevent further occurrences and to control or manage occurrences and the perceived fear of crime. So those are the 3 elements I wanted you to tease out. The additional sources that you uploaded before the November exam on my UNISA, will those still be relevant for the upcoming exam? Leonie, absolutely. Absolutely. But nothing prevents you from, you have 2 days, guys, 48 hours. I told my mother-in-law this afternoon when I was in the garden, I sometimes sleep at night. We can sleep when we're dead. Sorry. You focus now when you get your exam. And I understand there are people that work. There are people with responsibilities. There are people with children. Please, please, please make a plan and see if somebody can look after your child, even if it's a couple of hours a day where you work, and prioritize. Speak to your partner, speak to your mom, engage. Remember, it takes a village to raise a child. Engage your village to help you to create an environment in which you can focus and concentrate and do your best. Don't try and do this alone. Activate the resources and the sources around you. Okay, Leonie, you are sorted. Ah, Nkolo, I'm so happy. Any other questions? Nothing prevents you if you now, because I'm not always fast on the draw, so I don't always have a quick response or a quick answer, but if you wake up tomorrow morning and you tell, oh, I wanted to ask this, pop me an email. Or even do it, Jairus, I'll be with you now, do it on the Telegram group where everybody can share, because that's also where learning takes place. Yes, my man.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask, will it put me any way in jeopardy if I ever mix like the normal referencing with footnotes as well?
No, don't do footnotes. Please don't do footnotes. We are in the School of Criminal Justice, not in law. We don't use footnotes. We use in-text notes, in-text references.
Okay.
Please, thank you. Okay, Prof, I like using internet sources for information. I know I might sound crazy. It's possible to in-text internet sources. Sometimes they don't have authors. Yes, yeah. But then what you do if it doesn't have an author, then you use the organization's name. So like if you got it off the SAPS website, then you will cite the SAPS as the website. If you got it off Ernst & Young's website, then you cite the website, Ernst & Young. That's in short the easiest way to explain that. So I hope that helps you. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no further questions, I'm going to say to each one of you, thank you. The fact that you are here on a Thursday evening offering up your private time shows me commitment to your studies. And I'm a firm believer in sowing and reaping. What you sow, you will reap. And when we sow effort, and when we sow intentional effort with the right things, then we will reap the right things. But all I'm asking is please, please, please apply the principles I addressed in this lesson. Tell the students that weren't here to listen to this lesson, to go and look at the recording. I will probably only have it up by tomorrow. It's going to be on the YouTube clip on the YouTube channel, because for some other reason you guys can't access when it's the Microsoft Teams recording. So I'm going to put it on the YouTube channel. Please go and look at it and internalize what I've explained, and practice even before the time. Take your exam paper and ask yourself, okay, if I get a question like this, how will I explain it? How will I put this into my own words? How will I provide an example for this? Go and look for a source, and in so doing, build like a little library for yourself. That is also part of exam preparation. Okay, everybody. Yes, no further questions, and I'm going to bid you good night. And then I will hopefully meet you with one of my other modules, but not 2607 again, please. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Prof.
Pleasure.
Bye, Prof.
Bye.
Bye, Prof. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Prof.